In this video, we're going to be determining the x and the y-intercept of a parabolic function. Remember, when you do x-intercept, you make y 0, right? So for x-intercept, we know that our y must be 0 here. Then when you do y-intercept, you need x to be 0. These are the two most important things you need to know for the intercepts. Né? And the other thing is that I want to emphasize, always write your answers as coordinates, né? Because it's intercepts, they are points. So you always leave them as x coordinate, y. Don't forget that. Né? Perfect. So we're going to start with number 1. So on 1, we have f of x equals to x plus 4, and then open and close bracket, squared minus 1, right? I'm going to start with y-intercept. Né? It's always easier to start with y-intercept. Remember, for y-intercept, you make x 0. Né? So x equals to 0, right? So where I see x, I'm going to input 0, basically, if I'm doing the y-intercept. So basically, y-intercept, it's f at 0. F at 0 means when x is 0, we need to know what is the output. So our input is 0. We replace the x by 0. Né? Sharp. So it means on the right-hand side where I see x, I'm going to put 0. So I see x there, I put 0, then plus 4, squared minus 1. And this gives me 16 minus 1, which is 15. This means if my input is 0, my output is 15. Therefore, my y-intercept is going to be the input being 0 and the output being 15. Okay. You always write it as a coordinate. Né? Now we're going to do the x-intercept. X-int. Remember, for x-intercept, you make y 0. Né? What does this mean? This means that f of x equals to 0. Remember, f of x is your y, right? So f of x equals to 0. So I'm going to have this then. I'm going to have 0 equals to x plus 4 squared minus 1, right? Perfect. So what other people do here is they're going to do the product of this bracket here and then use quadratic formula, which is also okay. But when it's in the turning point form, né? You're just going to take your q to the other side always. Né? So I'm going to do that. So this will become positive 1. So which is x plus 4 squared. Right. And I prefer to put the one that I'm working with on there, or the one that I'm solving on the left. So I'm going to write it as this. Né? So this equation and this one are the same. Do you see it? Just swap the left and the right. Okay, now I need to remove the square. So I'm going to remove the square with a square root. Now you always remove the exponent by the root of that exponent. So then here I also square root, and then I put plus minus. Don't forget, when you root with a square, you always put plus minus. So square root always plus minus. Cube root, no plus minus. So basically saying is this, or generally saying, if you are rooting with an even root, you always put a plus minus. Né? But if you are rooting with an odd root, you are not going to put plus minus. Perfect. So here, the square root cancel that square. So I have x plus 4 equals to plus minus 1, right? And then I'm going to have x plus 4 equals to 1, or x plus 4 equals to -1. So I'm splitting the plus and the -1. Plus 1 is here, the -1 is there. This side remains the same. Then I have x equals to 1 minus 4, which is -3. And then this side I have x equals to -1 minus 4, which is -5, right? The mistake that many learners do is they always leave their answer here. Don't forget to write your answers as coordinates, because these are intercepts, they are points. So remember, here our x is -3, and then our y is 0, right? Or -5, and then our y is 0. These are your two x-intercepts, and that is your y-intercept. And that's it about number 1. We're now going to go to number 2. Let me get our calculator ready for number 2. Okay, so number 2. If you've watched the first video, I'm sure you can see that this is the basic form, right? So basically, I'm going to rearrange it. Ne? So you can see that this one must always be the first one. So I have positive x squared. So it's just x squared. Then minus 8x. So minus 8x, and then positive 16, which is plus 16. Ne? This is ax squared plus bx plus c. This is the standard or the basic form. You need to know your forms. It's compulsory to know the forms. Ne? If you don't know them, please go look at the first video before you come to watch this one. Okay, so here, it's easy to do the y-intercept. If it's in standard form, your y-intercept is always going to be this. Ne? 0 coordinate c, if it's in the standard form. So in this case, I can see that my c is 16. So I have 0 coordinate 16. And then that is my y-intercept. Do we see it? If you want to, you can still substitute g at 0 here. You put 0 here, there, and there. You can see that this part will disappear because you multiply by 0, and this part will also disappear. So you have that. So, but it's good to know that C is your y-intercept. Is the y-intercept of the parabola if it's in standard form. Perfect. And ladies and gents, don't confuse C and Q. Q is in the turning point form. It's not going to be your y-intercept. This is the y value in the turning point, remember. Okay. Perfect. Now we're going to do the x-intercept. So let me do it here. X-int. Okay, let's do this. X-intercept. Remember, you make y0, right? So it means you're going to have 0 here because this is your y. So I put 0 there, and then I have 16 minus 8x plus x squared, which is 0 equals to, I'm going to write it in the arranged form now, which is x squared minus 8x plus 16. And then from there, we're going to use the quadratic formula. Okay, we're going to use the quadratic formula, or we can just do this because I can see that this is basically a rational trinomial, so it can be factorized, right? So it's going to be -4 and -4. So it's going to be x, since the brackets are the same, I'm just going to write 1. X minus 4 equals to 0. So x equals to 4. Then my point will be 4 coordinate 0. Okay, so that is my y-intercept. This is my x-intercept. And ladies and gents, if I have one x-intercept, it means this will be my turning point. It means I'm touching the x-axis with the turning point. I can prove to you here, just doing quickly, the x value in the turning point. Remember, we use negative b over 2a, right? Then negative, you can see that your b is negative 8 over 2, and then your a is what? It's 1. So the answer is 4. You can see that this is the x value in the turning point, which is exactly the same as that one. So always when you get one x-intercept, you should have a graphical image that your parabola is just touching the graph, the x-axis only once. Okay, perfect. We're going to go to number 3 now. I suggest you pause the video and do number 3 on your own, and then check the solution. Right. Okay, let's go to 3. Okay, let's check the solution of 3. Okay, so we're going to do number 3 now. Okay, since I've discussed 1 and 2, from here I'm going to move a little bit faster, and since it's repetition. So on 3, we can see that our y-intercept is going to be this, right, which is your C. So you have 0, coordinate, -3, since it's in the basic form. Okay. And then we're going to do x-intercept now. X-intercept. Remember, for x-intercept, you do what? You make y 0, right? So it means you're going to make this part 0 here. So you have 0 equals to -x squared plus 4x minus 3. 0, ladies and gents, I like to make this part here positive. So I'm going to switch all the signs. Ne? I prefer to work with a positive on A, unless if I just use a quadratic formula. Remember, when you hear, if you like, you can just use a quadratic formula, right? But I always just like checking if it is a rational trinomial or not before I use the quadratic formula. So this is switches to positive. This will be negative. Then that will be a positive. And then, okay, I can see that this is still a rational trinomial, so I'm not going to use the quadratic formula. But ladies and gents, if you want, you can use the quadratic formula. And I can see that it's going to be x minus 3 equals to 0, or x minus 1 equals to 0. And then it's going to be x equals to 3, or x equals to 1. Which means it's going to be 3 coordinate is 0, or 1 coordinate is 0. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want the revision on factorizing trinomials, we're going to do a lesson on that later on when we do grade 10R content. Ne? Perfect. So for now, I'm not going to explain how to do it. You can, if you don't understand this, you can still use a quadratic formula there. Ne? Still welcome. Perfect. So because I want to save time, I'm not going to explain that factorization. It's going to be a topic on its own. Okay, let's go to 4. So 4 is in turning point form. If it's in turning point form, I always going to substitute 0 here on x and there, right? Sharp. So I'm doing y-intercept. Y-int, I make x 0, remember? So I'm basically looking at j at 0, which means j input 0, which is 4. And then I'm inputting 0 there, minus 3 squared minus 1, which becomes, let's see, this becomes 9. 9 times 4 is 36. And then 36 minus 1 is 35. And then this means if x is 0, the output is 35. And that's your y-intercept. Okay, now we're going to do the x-intercept. Né? Let's do the x-intercept. Okay, so the x-intercept. So x-int, Remember, for x-intercept, we make y 0. So we have 0 equals to 4x minus 3 squared minus 1. Then I'm going to move 1 that side, which becomes positive 1 equals to 4. And then it's going to be x minus 3 squared, right? Okay, let's create space. So here we're going to have, let's see, we're going to have 1 divided by 4 equals to x minus 3 squared. So I want to isolate this 4. I want to isolate the bracket, so I divide by 4 both sides, right? So divide by 4 there, divide by 4. That's how I obtain my 1 over 4 there. Right. Awesome. And then now we can have this. Let's see. We're going to square root both sides here. Ne? So square root, and then square root here. But on the side of the number, remember, you put plus minus. Ne? So if you put this on a calculator, it's going to give you half. So you have plus minus 1 over 2 equals to x minus 3. Then you're going to split like we did previously. So you're going to say 1 over 2 equals to x minus 3. And then which means, okay, let's do the other one first. And then I'm going to say, oh, negative 1 over 2 equals to x minus 3. Okay, now let's solve this one. I'm going to move the 3 that side, which is 1 over 2 plus 3 equals to x. And then, okay, since I don't have space, we can go there. Therefore, for this one, x is going to be 7 over 2. Or, let's do this one. So it's going to be negative 1 over 2 plus 3 equals to x, which means 6 minus 1, 5. So it's going to be, or x equals to 5 over 2. Ne? Then your 2x intercept is going to be 7 over 2 coordinate 0, or 5 over 2 coordinate 0. Right. And that's it. That's it about number 4. We're now quickly going to go to number 5. Okay, let's erase. To create space, let's erase. So we're quickly going to go to number 5 now. And number 5 is still in the turning point form. So I'm going to have k at 0. Remember here I'm doing the y-intercept. Ne? Y-int, we make x 0, right? I advise you to also pause number 5 and solve it. And check the solution. So we're doing k at 0. So k input 0 means 4, 0 minus 3 squared plus 1, right? Which means 9 times 4 is 36 plus 1 is 37. So here we're going to have x being 0 and your y being 37. And that's your y-intercept. Okay. Now let's do x-intercept. Remember x-int, we make y 0, right? Which means k of x will be 0. Remember k of x is just y, right? So I'm gonna basically have 0 equals to 4x minus 3 squared plus 1, right? Then I'm going to move this one that side. So it's minus 1 equals to 4x 3 squared, right? Then I have to divide by 4 both sides, but I already see that there's no solution, but I'll show you why now. Ne? Show you why. Then you have that. This 4 cancels that. So you have negative 1 over 4 equals to x minus 3 squared, right? Now remember, this step you have to square root both sides and put a plus minus. But remember, in maths, a square root of a negative number is a restriction. It cannot happen. It's non-real. Therefore, here you're going to say, therefore, no solution. Right. Your reason you're going to say because is therefore faced upside down. Eh? Because Discriminant just means whatever is inside the square root, ne? It's less than 0. So you're just showing that it's negative. Okay? So it means our parabola, it's either going, if this is the x-axis, our parabola is going to be facing there, like this, up. How did I know that? I checked the value of a. If it was negative, I would know that it will be below. You see it facing down. It doesn't have to touch this because of no solution. Okay. And that's it about this question. So we're going to go to number 6 now. Okay. Let's go to 6. Let me erase quickly. Who is my bigger eraser? Okay. So we can go to 6 now. On 6, I can easily see that my y-intercept is going to be 0 coordinate -4 because we have a standard form. So C is what? Is your y-intercept, remember. Okay. Awesome. Now we're going to do the x-intercept. X-int, we make y0, remember? So this part becomes 0. So we're going to have 0 equals to 2x squared minus 3x minus 4. Right. And then, do we have rational roots here? No, we don't. This is how I check, guys. Let me show you how I see it. Ne? You just use b squared minus 4ac. We're going to discuss the nature of roots later on. Ne? We're going to discuss the nature of roots later on. Be looking out for the video of nature of roots. It's loading. So your b is -3. Make sure to put brackets when you substitute. Minus 4. Then our a is 2. Then our c is -4, right? So this gives me 9. That gives me 16 times 2, which is plus 32, which is 41. 41 is not a perfect square. Ne? So if it's not a perfect square, it means you cannot factorize using rational methods. Here, it's a must. You have to use quadratic formula. Ne? Here you have to use quadratic formula. So we're quickly going to use our quadratic and see how much we're going to get. So I can see that, okay, my A is that. My B is that. Then that's my C, right? Sharp. So let's substitute into the quadratic. Remember, it's -b plus minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now let's substitute. Negative. We have -3 as our b plus minus. Here I'm going to substitute -3 squared minus 4. My a is what? What is my a, ladies and gents? My a is 2. Then my c is -4 all over 2. And then my a is 2, right? Now we're going to put that into the calculator and see how much we get. Okay. Let's see. So we're going to have -3 plus square root of -3 squared minus 4 2 minus 4, right? Then all over 2, right? And then let's see. So the reason here I couldn't put them plus minus is because there's no function like that on the calculator. So you always start with one side and you're going to come back later and erase. Ne? So my two answers are going to be x equals 2 or x equals 2. Right, let's see what is the first answer going to be. Okay, so it's going to be, you see it's irrational. So it's going to be 2, comma what? Always 2 decimal, comma 35, ne? Then let's check when it's a minus. When it's a minus, So it's gonna be, let's see, negative 0.85. Okay. Negative 0.85. Therefore, your x-intercept is 2.35 coordinate 0, which is your y, or negative 0.85 coordinate 0. I'm sure you always see that I don't forget my coordinates when I do my intercepts. Né? Intercepts, points, you always write them in coordinate form. Ladies and gents, this is it about this video. I hope it was helpful. Please don't forget to share with family and friends. And we will meet again in the next session of Maths Fanatics 24/7. Thank you.